Will democracy survive in the next couple of years?
And essentially, we are the same.
And there are so many needs that Minnesota has.
What people are saying they need right now.
Access to democracy is made possible by donations from the following organizations. Thomson Reuters, a global company with expertise and insight to unravel complex situations in the areas of law, tax, compliance, government, and media. Their worldwide network of journalists and editors keep customers up to speed on relevant global events. Thomson Reuters, the answer company. Crutchfield Dermatology, a full-service treatment center in Medi-Spa in Eagan. Their goal is to help you look good and feel great with beautiful skin. With service built around courtesy, dignity, and respect, Mayo-trained Dr. Charles Crutchfield personally treats each patient and is acknowledged as one of the nation's best physicians. Firefly Credit Union, with locations throughout the Twin Cities, has proudly served Minnesotans since 1925. Firefly guides its members forward by delivering customized financial solutions to improve their lives in all aspects of banking. Firefly Credit Union, they light the way with life illuminated. EDINA Eye, Physicians and Surgeons, a division of Twin Cities Eye Consultants, has proudly served the Twin Cities for more than 55 years. Now in 7 convenient locations. Using the most advanced technology combined with human touch, EDINA Eye offers comprehensive services but dedicated specialists committed to excellence with innovative procedures and expertise for the most advanced eye care.
And welcome to Access to Democracy by Zoom in this new world. And part of the old world is Matt Goldman. We got a lot to talk to Matt about because he can tell us how a pandemic affects writers on both coasts. And particularly, he had so many years in television and in the movie industry, and he's still got his Emmys someplace. They're not visible behind him at the moment, but they're around someplace. Anyway, Matt, welcome back.
Thank you. Nice to see you again.
Good to see you, even long distance.
Yes.
Matt has been writing thrillers for the last few years, and it's a serial thriller about Nils Shapiro, the multi-ethnic Minnesota private detective. And he's had Broken Ice, Gone to Dust, and The Shallows in reverse order. And we have a new one called Dead West, and I'm going to hold it up now so everybody can see it. Dead West, a real departure from Nils, who was pretty much in Minnesota in the other books, and here we're on both coasts. So
yeah.
Has it come out? Because I know publication dates are really being screwed at the moment.
It was supposed to come out June 2nd, so in a few days, but now it's coming out August 4th.
Oh, so
and I think that will stick.
We are very
anxious. Yeah, it'll be out August.
Dead West, Matt Goldman, the latest Nils Shapiro. And how has the pandemic changed your life, other than the fact that your books are not coming out after you worked on them so hard when they're supposed to, and you're getting pushed back, but I guess that might help sales rather in the long run.
Well, it hasn't changed my life that much, and I've talked to quite a few other writers. The book writers, other than how it's affected all of us, which is sometimes the news is just overwhelming, and the disruption to our routine is hard, and a general sadness for the whole world, which can definitely creep into your writing and give you bad days here and there. But other than that, for the book writers, it hasn't affected most of us that much. Things have been far more destructive.
We just spoke to David Housewright, and David said pretty much the same thing. His book is actually being, segued around, or whatever you want to call it, from the original release date. But other than that, what does a writer do? He gets up.
Yeah, my
he does
day-to-day routine is the same, pretty much.
It's those
I
probably
write,
4 or
I
5
walk the
hours.
dogs.
I would say it's pretty much those 4 or 5 hours in the morning that the writing gets done, if I had to take a guess. And I don't know if that's your routine or
Yeah.
not. I don't think we ever discussed it, but I think it is.
It is. I usually go a little longer than that, but that is my routine. My writers on the West Coast, my TV and film writer friends, they have faced more of a disruption
Yeah, we're
because
going to talk
production
about
is
that
yeah
because production is dead out there, and
yeah
it's really damaging them probably more than it is of those of us who live here in God's country. So there's an advantage to Minnesota, and all these writers were ahead of the curve when they decided to put their roots down here in Minnesota. Of course, your roots started here in Minnesota, then you abandoned,
yes
but then you suddenly got struck by I don't know, homesickness, and you returned. Here we are.
yes
Dead West, an interesting book because you were able to utilize your many years in Hollywood and on the West Coast in this book. You moved Nils Shapiro from his comfort zone here in Minnesota out to chase down what a young man is doing with a trust fund out on the West Coast because his grandparents, who fronted the money, are getting concerned that he may be throwing it away or spending it on wine, women, and song, and not what it was intended to do. So Evan is he's in Minnesota, but his grandparents are here, and they hire Nils Shapiro to chase down the story, and quite a story it becomes.
thanks. Yeah, the book starts in Minnesota and has a bit in the middle in Minnesota and it ends in Minnesota, but the rest of it's in Los Angeles.
And it ends in Minnesota after Nils spends 27 days in the hospital, being flown back here on a private plane after one of the misadventures on the West Coast.
Yeah.
But it's packed with your usual sardonic humor. And that's one of the things that's particularly fascinating about your book is you were a comedy writer. You started out as a comic and then became a comedy writer. So you are able to implement that into your stories, and it gives them a fascinating twist.
Oh, good. Thank you.
I want to read one
fun
portion
writing them.
toward the
Sure.
end of the book, where Nils is in a coma, and he's in the hospital, and he starts having several apparitions, as I actually did 2 years ago when I was not in the hospital, but recovering from surgery. And Nils says, in this coma, a dog that I haven't seen in 25 years sits next to me. Her name is Sheila. She's a 70-pound golden retriever, which is a bit of a misnomer because she has dark red fur. She was hit by a car when I was 15. It happened right in front of my eyes. The driver didn't stop. I reach over and pet her. Sheila's fur feels warm in the sun. What I'm doing, I'm trying to set myself up to do your audiobooks. I say, sorry. I'm sorry I let you off the leash. I didn't think you'd run away from me. And she says, I didn't run away from you. I saw a squirrel on the other side of the street. And Nils says, yeah, well, I should have thought of that possibility. And Sheila says, the dog, don't be ridiculous, Nils. I'm a dog. I'm hardwired to chase squirrels. That's what I do. It's not my fault. It's not your fault. When I'm chasing squirrels, I'm at peace. I was in pursuit of a squirrel, and it was a delightful way to go. And Nils is torn by that. He says, really, I cried for months after you died. I still get sad when I think of it. I've been afraid to get another dog ever since. And then they hear an airplane overhead, and Nils says, why are there so many airplanes here? And Sheila says, no idea. I'm a dog. and it goes back and forth like that. He has this comatose conversation with his dog right before the end of the book. And it's just another example of the way you can cutely utilize dialogue as part of a thriller. So talk about the West Coast with me. We have all these writers, your friends on the West Coast, and they can sit down and they write all day, but they can't go to the studio. They can't have their meetings. They can't film their television shows. They can't go through the rewrites. It's got to be more than frustrating for them.
Yeah, you know, I was on a Zoom call, actually a Zoom poker game with 6 of them last night, and these are, you know, people who are quite accomplished in their careers, and they're not sitting down and writing on spec. They're not just writing for writing's sake, and they are having some production meetings, especially those in the movie and as opposed to TV. They're having production meetings to gear up, but they don't know when they're going to get back out there. A couple of them are big animation directors. They're having those meetings too. And I asked them last night, the animation people, they can do some of the work because people are at home illustrating and putting things together, but no one's really sure when they're going to come back. I know I spoke to my manager yesterday. There's some TV interest in me for some projects, and writers' rooms are coming together virtually, just like this. They will start on Zoom, 6 or 8 or 10 writers talking to each other virtually, and that, which is how a writer's room, you know, the way TV shows work, a writer's room gets together and starts for 2 or 3 or 4 months, and then production starts. But no one's really sure exactly when that's going to happen. I know that Governor Newsom in California is starting to say he thinks it can happen soon. Pardon me?
When you get together, though, it's usually in one room, is it not? Not by Zoom.
It usually is. It'll start on Zoom as shows are starting, but they will move together as soon as they can. I think the Zoom is going to work out for writers' rooms pretty well. It's not quite the same. I'm not sure how production is going to happen because there's a lot of people in close proximity. Hair and makeup people, sound people, or props. They're very close to the actors, and the lighting team sits very close to each other looking at monitors. I'm not quite sure how it's going to happen. I think it's going to be a reflection of what goes on in the country in general. If people are just distancing less, and we'll see what happens. Nobody knows.
The president just said he may supersede all the states this weekend about religious meetings and church attendance, and I'm not sure where
I saw that
authority under the Constitution or any law that I've seen. I don't know where he gets that authority, but it sounds good to the people who have been literally dying to get back to church, and I mean dying to get back, and maybe dying after they get back.
Yeah, I think at a certain point, the guidelines and the regulations will give way to what people are going to do. Some people are just going to gather no matter what, and and we'll see more sickness, and then other people are just going to stay isolated. So they won't be able to force business back because some people just won't go to restaurants and crowded events.
I
But
read today
as far as
in
Hollywood
Georgia,
goes,
no, I read
yeah,
today that in Georgia, they opened up the restaurants. Alabama did too. People in Alabama flocked back. People in Georgia did not. They are staying home. They are distancing. They are self-quarantining,
huh?
and they probably will live a lot longer than the ones in Alabama.
Yeah. Well, it's yeah. I think in Hollywood, I think how it's going to affect writers, you're going to see a lot more scenes with 2 or 3 people in them, as opposed to big crowded scenes. And I think that's going to be just for production reasons, to keep people as distanced as possible. And there's nothing wrong with that. Those are some of the best scenes ever. I think it'll just get a little simpler.
Well, what have you been working on in this down period? What has Nils Shapiro been doing? What new adventures does he have, or are you into something else?
Well, I'm into some other things. There's another book out there that I have an offer on. There is I've written a couple television pilots that are going to go out into the marketplace soon, and I'm now writing. My publisher Forge likes another idea, a non-Nils idea that I am writing a portion of to show to them, to see if we're going to move forward with that as well. So I would like to write more Nils books. We'll see how Dead West sells, but I've been quite productive and busy during this. The first week of it was hard for me. I think I was just overwhelmed by, like everybody was, with this big change in our lives. But after that, I settled down into a regular work routine.
Well, we've been sort of locked in for 9 weeks now, but
Yeah,
we only lost 2 scheduled interview weeks, and we've been able, thanks to the talent of Egan TV, we've been able to go
yeah,
Zoom. So we're available not only in the Egan-Burnsville area, but in 34 cities around Minnesota.
great.
Our talented people are now going to add Roku to our portfolio so that
Oh, wow.
people can not only watch us live stream, but they can also call us up on demand. And it blows me away. I mean, I don't know, Roku is a word to me, but Roku to technical
Right.
people means a lot more. And I think I have to go out, if I can ever go shopping again, and get a Roku to add to my TV. So.
Yeah, great. That's great. I can't imagine how we'd get through this without our technology.
No, those have been the people that have been leading us. Everyone except the president, perhaps. But
I agree.
I saw you take a drink before, but I
Just
hope.
water.
Oh, okay. I was afraid it might be Lysol or something like that, and
No,
I wanted to dissuade you from that.
no, that I inject directly into my veins.
For those of you watching from home, he's only kidding. He's a
Yes,
satirist.
I am kidding.
Out of my Access to Democracy cup,
Nice.
faithful to that. So you have all these other projects that you've been able to spend time on, and you're pretty much a new bride. Well, you're a new groom in this case, but
Yes,
that's still going well, I take it.
it is. It's going very well. Yeah, about a year, a little more than a year and a half.
Yeah, and of course, that's a lot of togetherness. So that is a real test of a relationship. It's amazing that I have been sleeping with one eye open because I figured Sharon's had about enough of me, and I don't want to get attacked during the night. But she hasn't done any violence to me so far, so I guess
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard for everybody. They have to, don't get a break from each other. So it is difficult.
So what else can we say about the change in our lives without getting too political? Because if I get political, I'm going to go right off the end of the diving board.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. It is an interesting study in human nature, and everybody has to they make their own decisions about what they value in life, and so some people will be crowding into religious institutions regardless of governor's rules, and
hallelujah.
Pardon me?
I said hallelujah.
Hallelujah. And it'll be interesting to see how the disease progresses, because until there's a vaccine, I don't think it's going to be safe. And when there is a vaccine, there'll be people who are against the vaccine. There's no doubt about that. So,
and also
how this.
No, and also, there's going to be 7 billion people lining up to get the vaccine, and I just don't think that 7 billion doses are going to come out instantly, whether it's from one chemical company or whether it's from several chemical companies, and then everybody is going to want to get online first to get the vaccine. So that in and of itself will be an interesting adventure.
Yeah, and we'll see how it mutates. I know that one of the books that is out there right now that I have an offer on is set in 1922. So it's post-pandemic, and that figured into the tale of the book because the Spanish flu was 1918, and it lasted for a couple of years, and it eventually mutated into a less lethal form of itself. So I just kind of wrote about that period and know a little bit about what happened with that flu, and so this has been a similar experience, and so we'll see how it mutates.
Yeah. We certainly will, and we know so much more in terms of not only technology but medicine than we did in 1918. It makes me somewhat hopeful. But by the way,
me too.
I am not bored when you're talking. That snoring that you hear is my dog who's asleep at my feet. Now that's something that we couldn't have in the studio.
That's a good dog.
She's right here. She's my protector.
I got one asleep at my feet too.
Well, maybe yours doesn't snore, but Katie does. So that's Katie snoring.
She might start. She likes to chase rabbits and whimper in her sleep. So we'll see if that happens.
Oh. Is that where you got the idea about Sheila?
No, the Sheila thing. I've always had a dog my whole life since I was born. So, and I did see a dog get hit by a truck when I was 5, I think. I was younger than the character, but
it stays with you. Though.
It does stay with you, yeah.
But they are great, and I don't know how anyone lives without a dog or dogs. And perhaps the fact that Trump has never had a dog and won't have a dog tells us something. So I did get a little bit political there. But so you've got so many things in the hopper. Tell me about Jameson White, a character in Dead West. Is he going to be written into future Nils Shapiro books?
Yeah, definitely. Jameson first appears in the second book, Broken Ice, when Nils gets shot by an arrow, and he's hired to be Nils' private nurse.
Right.
Jameson is this large 6'7" ex-football player. He played in the Canadian Football League, and he became a trauma nurse. And he's hired to since Nils can't sit still in a hospital, he's hired to kind of follow Nils around and take care of him. He makes a brief appearance in the third book, The Shallows. But in this fourth book, Dead West, which comes out in August, Jameson's a big part of it. Nils has to go to Los Angeles, and he takes Jameson with him for a couple of reasons. One is that Jameson played college ball at UCLA and knows the city well. And the other reason is that Jameson has just gone through a trauma in his life and is not working, and Nils is trying to get him back on track by taking him with on this trip.
And he spends a lot of time here, and I was fascinated by the amount of life that was put into Jameson here in this book, so that I just had the feeling we're going to see more of him in the future, or maybe Jameson spin-off. I have no idea, but I know that those ideas roll around in your head. And
they do. Whenever I go out, and I haven't done it in a few months, but when I would go into book events at libraries and bookstores, Jameson is always mentioned as one of the favorite characters. So, and I love to write him. So we've been spending most of our interview here, and time is winding down. Is there anything that you want to impart to your fans as we're moving toward the end of the interview? No, the only thing I want to get, one of the groups that have really suffered during this is bookstores. So just, and not even my books, but if you can, buy a book from your independent bookstore. When the distancing stops, go out and support them. They're a real asset to the community. And some of them aren't going to make it through this, which is sad, just like some of the restaurants are. But I know the libraries, I've talked to several librarians, they're getting calls like anxiously patrons want them to reopen. And so the books will keep coming, and the writers are writing, and the readers,
the second writer
Pardon me?
today who has said the same, I say you're the second writer today who has said the same thing about the bookstore, and we have actually run out of our allotted time. So until we'll see the next Matt Goldman interview, stay safe, stay home, and keep writing.
Thanks, Alan, and you too. And hopefully next time I will see you in person.
I hope so.